Hey guys, friends, musicians, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the review of the brand new SDX for Superior Drummer 3, the Rooms of Hansa. In this video, I'm going to tell you why this expansion pack is special for me, because it was recorded in my hometown, which is Berlin, Germany. This whole SDX is kind of like made in Germany. You will find out more about this. You will find out why I have even a cup of the recording studio, the Hansa Studios, this SDX has been recorded in. And I will tell you why this is probably the best sounding expansion they ever released, yet why it's still not the best SDX in general they ever released. So, and by the way, of course, as for every new release, I re-upload and remixed an old drum cover from mine using the new SDX. It's the Pearl Jam black cover. You will find the link and the screen somewhere, of course, in the description box below the video. So make sure, if you want to hear those samples in an actual context of a mix, check out my little drum cover I did, I think 3 or 4 years ago already, which I just used the old MIDI performance, send it through this new SDX and remixed it. Used one of the presets that comes along and just tweaked it a little bit to taste. So make sure you watch this. But now, without further ado, let's jump into. So in 2018, Toontrack contacted me if I want to join one day of the recording session because they were working on a new SDX, and luckily and gladly I said yes. So I went to the famous Hansa Studios based here in Berlin, Germany, a famous iconic studio. And I had the chance to spend some hours with the guys from Toontrack, with engineer Michael Ilbert, and to witness some hours at least of the recording session. It was a great experience to see the love to detail and the craftsmanship that is going on in producing such an SDX. So I just looked over the shoulder of the engineer Michael Ilbert. I watched Norman, the drummer from Toontrack, who sampled this library again, to really fine-tune every single drum with a love to detail that is really second to none. I could make some shots of the drums. Not every drum I saw in that room they used for this sample pack. So this was a great experience. Thanks again, Toontrack, for inviting me that day. And as you can remember, I had to be silent until then. But finally, right now, it has been released. Toontrack just released this new SDX, and I'm happy to have already a copy of that to do my review as used and as you are used to in this channel. So we have 6 complete kits, as you can read along here. 12 snares, 7 kicks, a lot of different drum sets from custom-built companies in Germany, Italy, and the United States. We have a total of 81 presets that are divided onto the 4 rooms this pack was recorded in, the Hansa Studios in Berlin. The studio by the wall, it was really built next, or just 150 meters next to the Berlin Wall, which thankfully of course already came down again, but so it's a historic place in Berlin as well. So you see some pictures. This is the building from the outside, some pictures from the inside, some of the famous records that have been recorded in this place. It's just really the who is who from the last decades. Famous, of course, especially heroes from David Bowie and Achtung Baby from U2. So you see the pictures show the level of detail, the amount of microphones they used to record this. I highly recommend this every time. Go to Toontrack's website where you find all the different information on the drums themselves, some interviews, video, and pictures. So highly recommend doing that. What the Rooms of Hansa are all about by Michael Ilbert. So this studio has a lot of history and a lot of great sounding rooms, and this, talking about the rooms, as the name suggests, the Rooms of Hansa, this is exactly what this SDX is all about and why it's so special. So I've started with the first room here, which is called the live room, which you see here. And when you go to the menu of the libraries, you will see that Hansa comes with 4 different rooms. And I will show each of them, talk about the special things and special sounds of each and every room. And I think this is an amazing idea. So basically, there are 4 rooms in one SDX. Each serves a different purpose, and you can create different sounds with that. So we have the live room. We have the marble room, which is determined by, of course, the walls. They are made of marble, amazing sounding room. And I recorded some of my videos here in this room. On the day I participated in the recording, they were just about to record the drums in this special room, in this marble room. We have, I would skip one here, we have the vocal booth, which, as you can imagine, it's a very dry and tight sounding room made for vocal, but sounds amazing with drums in it. And then, of course, finally, the absolutely brilliant, amazing, gorgeous Meistersaal, which means master hall, something like that. It's probably the most famous room of this whole building where the Hansa Studios are located in from the whole premises. Usually not used as a recording premises anymore. U2 and David Bowie recorded in this room, but Toontrack made it happen together with the owner of the studios and engineer Michael Ilbert, who has his own studio in this premises. So to record drums here with a level of detail that is really second to none. But let's start with the Hansa room. So with the live room here. The live room is probably the most used of all of them. It has a special, let's say, a great combination between live reverby sound, but still dry. When it comes to drums, they surprisingly chose a rather small footprint when it comes to sizes overall. So in the live room, you just have one drum kit here, which is a vintage Camco, which they brought in from the UK. This was a specific wish by engineer Michael Ilbert, who he wanted to record a Camco kit. So in general, the engineer Michael Ilbert, and you see this in the press material they release for the press or guys like me, you will find out that Michael had a very specific idea to record this SDX. He was all about like, if I'm gonna do this for you guys, it's gonna be my drum sound and I will determine and decide what we're gonna record. And that's of course totally fine. So it's kind of like a signature SDX as well, a signature SDX for the Hansa Studios in Berlin, as well as for the sound of Michael Ilbert, who is a 2-time, I think, Grammy Award winning engineer working for Katy Perry, Adele, Roxette back in the day. So the list of artists he has been working on and is still working on is really famous, and it's really just the who is who of modern production. So and from same for the cymbals here, as you see, we have for each slot just one cymbal. So this SDX, and this goes on for almost every room, I will show you in a few. So this is all about, let's say, the sound that Michael Ilbert created, and not about a huge amount of drums you might expect or you already witnessed in some other expansion packs. What I'm gonna do now with every single room, I will load the default kit. In this case, this is the Camco kit, which comes along with this Dunnet Classic Titanium. I will talk about this guy here, Massow. For all you non-Germans out there, you might have heard him before. I will talk about him in a few. So I will play in each room the default kit and show you some of the presets and tell you why this is so special. So here's the Camco kit in its default state. I've created a little loop here so you get an idea how this room sounds. The mixer section is interesting to see. Alongside, of course, he as an engineer had his, let's say, clear ideas what microphone and recording technique this is all about when you team up with a famous engineer like Michael is. Same for Al Schmidt, like the Decades SDAs or some of the other SDXs they ever released. They all have their specific recording technique, which is absolutely great and great to see. Michael, for instance, beside like the common kick sub, snare, top, bottom, you name it, he had some very interesting recording techniques and microphones that he used and the sound that he wanted to capture. For instance, this dedicated kick snare channel, a compressor, the 1178, a Helios channel. So, and he uses those things in every single room, which creates a certain sound that he creates. And the presets he shaped, and I will talk about the presets right now. The presets that he shaped for each and every room were tailor-made for those rooms and for those drums in those rooms. So this whole SDX has a kind of like a custom shop feel to it. It's not like an overall go-to SDX, pretty much like the Death and Darkness SDX is, which they released last year in Metal Month. For me, the Death and Darkness is still kind of like the new go-to library, which serves like a wide variety of purposes. This SDX is all about the amazing and unique sounding room and the unique sounds and the amazing sounds the engineer Michael Ilbert captured out of the drums in the recording together with Norman Gaschke, the drummer who already sampled the Decades SDX and the core library. So talking about presets, because I know you guys are all about presets. You find in every single room, you find three different kinds of presets. One is always called Michael Ilbert default. And this is interesting because when you load one of the default settings, you will see, and in first instance you might see, well, that's not a preset, he just added two EQs, and in some other rooms you won't even find the EQ. But the interesting thing is here, what Michael did is, it's kind of like it's not a mix ready preset, but the sound he got out of just playing with levels, loading, bleeding into different channels, and here and there slight EQ moves. You see it's nothing really crazy going on here. This is kind of like already a first preset, and I will show you what I mean. Just listen to this preset, which is called the 1970s LA Maple Default. So what Michael wanted to achieve here is to leave the drums as natural sounding as they are. Those default settings you find in every room, and I'll show you some of them. The Michael Ilbert mix presets, though, they go more into the mix-ready presets here. You have different amount of presets for each room, and then finally, of course, Toontrack added their presets, which they always do, which is great. And they are usually more processed. And this is not a question of good or bad. It's just kind of like a different way to show you how versatile those rooms sound. And you will see when I show you the other rooms. So let's go to the next one, which is the marble room. In the marble room, they captured, and now I'm going to talk about the drums here, the Massow twin shell. Twin shell means it's half steel drums and maple, which is an amazing. Massow is a German custom drum company owned by Udo Massow. He builds snare drums and whole drum sets, and very, very unique and very custom, amazing sounding pieces of instruments. It's like always, every one of them is handmade in Germany. And the engineer Michael Ilbert has been working together with Udo Massow quite a lot in his career. So for him, it was a no-brainer to pick those drums. And I can tell you that these drums absolutely sound amazing. You see, it starts with this Massow twin shell snare drum, 6.5 by 14, a 24 by 14 kick drum, and the tom sizes are 9 by 13, in this case 14 by 16 and 14 by 18. So rather big. You see the room isn't that big, but due to the surface of the room and the walls, it has a massive sound. So here's the default kit in the marble room. So you get the idea. Again, just one cymbal per slot, and he's exclusively using Paiste cymbals, mainly 2002 series, in this case a 602 Modern Essentials, but in every single room you just find Paiste cymbals, which is of course great, but they exclude certain other flavors. But I will talk about this in my conclusion in the end. And some of you might already have spotted and now scream out loud for joy and happiness. Yes, they finally sampled octobuns and rototoms. So for all of you guys who were screaming to get some of these, finally it happened. I like from reading all the forums and online and even messages I get on my channel, people were constantly asking, please Toontrack add rototoms and octobuns, and here you go, guys. So you can add them just to the 16 drums, and here you can, instead of the toms, you can add the rototoms. So you have 10, 12, 14, and I think you could, yes, you have 8, 6. So you can really have which is of course amazing. In this room they captured a second drum kit, which is this Wahan Supreme Classic Acrylic. The word is hard to spell in English. This kit is owned by Armin Rühl. Armin Rühl is a famous German drummer. All you guys probably don't know him. He's the drummer for a German artist called Herbert Grönemeyer, which is one of the, if not the most successful German pop and rock artist in the last 20 years. So it's from his own personal collection, those drums, because this artist, Herbert Grönemeyer, has been working, or the drummer, together with Michael Ilbert in these studios quite a lot. So it was, again, a no-brainer to capture those drums. And these acrylic drums, of course, have an amazing sound. So let me just maybe pick the big 14x8 mass of gold Big Chief stainless snare drum here. So let's have a listen. Especially in this room, you see it's a similar setup of microphones here. You find again the kick snare channel here in mono. You have the Comp 1178. They added, for instance, this chairs channel. It's just a mono microphone in the stairs of the building. So it's kind of like acting like a reverb chamber. So you can add a little bit of reverb flavor here. So let me just quickly load just the snare and the toms here and solo it, so you can hear how massive this sounds. The cool thing about this room is it has, due to the reflections coming from the marble on the walls, the room sounds bigger as it actually is. But the cool thing is, due to the small size of the room, the decay time and let's say the low end build-up in the room is not so big and uncontrollable as you might expect. So it's kind of like a best of both worlds. I think this room might perfectly fit for modern rock productions where you need some punch and some energy just coming from the walls without adding too much artificial reverb. Those acrylic drums, of course, contribute to that sound, as well as the twin shell coming from Masov here. So it's a little bit sad to see that they didn't record like more drums, maybe 5 or 6 toms from these amazing shells, but it's really complaining on a high level here. It's like, especially this snare drum in this room sounds absolutely gorgeous. So the quite opposite, and I will skip the Meistersaal for now. Quite the opposite is this vocal booth. And I think this is an amazing opportunity. As you can expect, and I will play the default kit here, which is this sugar percussion set with modern sizes, 40 by 22, which is, and just two toms, two cymbals, a right and a pair of heads, again Pisces. So as you would expect in this room, it's rather dry because it's small, and the room, like a vocal booth, is of course very much absorption going on the walls. So, but this is great when you want to create like maybe a hip hop beat, or just want to create work on a beat, on an idea, and you don't want to get big reflections on the wall. So Sugar Percussion is a US company based in California. So they mahogany shells, so they sound amazing. Let's have a listen on those. As a second kit, we find this Merzi Wooding snare drum, drum kit here, which is again owned by Armin Rühl, the drummer I just talked about. And you find another Massow snare, which is even called Hansa Edition, so a snare drum obviously made for those studios. And Sono one-of-a-kind Makassar ebony snare drum. I know that this snare drum costs, I don't know, 1,500 to 2,000 euros. So amazing sounding instruments here, very boutique style. The cool thing, and I'm talking about the presets, and I'm going to show you one again. Again, you have the Michael Ilbert default, the mix one, and some Toontrack. And let me show you, for instance, this preset, which is called Sugar Plate. The great thing about those presets and having those different rooms is that you can play along and create amazing contrast between the tight sound of the room and what Toontrack did here, just adding some reverb on the snare and the toms, so you get amazing sounds. So let's have a listen on this. Certainly some sounds I never heard before from any Toontrack product. So it's a great addition to the existing line. It's very unique, very, I mean, some of the samples, especially the famous packs they release, like all the metal stuff. And of course, if you look for other companies like Steven Slade drums, they all sound great, but sometimes you have the feeling that the songs you hear and the productions you hear out of those productions, they all sound the same because everyone is using the same samples. With this pack, you get really unique, boutique, custom sounding drums, which makes this drum pack very interesting. And let's finally go to probably the highlight of the whole pack, which is called the Meistersaal room. This room, and I will show some footage right now, is very unique, even worldwide, from a worldwide perspective. It's an amazing sounding room. It's an amazing room itself. When you walk into, you can visit this room when you visit Berlin. It's just amazing. And as I told you in the beginning, this room is not used as a studio anymore. So glad Toontrack made it happen to record some drums here. Due to the big room, they went for the big sizes. So the default kick here, for instance, is this huge 28 by 14 inch Massow custom vintage. Together with the twin shell drums that I already showed in the marble room. And again with this Massow twin shell snare, and of course Paiste Jeff Ockeltree split of 2002. I've talked about this already several times. This is a snare drum that's been melted down from 2002 Paiste cymbals, and they made a snare drum out of it. Jeff Ochiltree was the drum tech of John Bonham. So some nerdy information for you guys. So let's have a listen on this huge drum set in this amazing and gorgeous sounding and big room. It reminds me a bit of the old Alea studio packs that Toontrack released in this New York bundle they released some years ago. So this room is all for when you want to create gigantic atmospheric drums, stadium rock. This is the room to go to. That's absolutely brilliant. Looking at the mixer channel, you can always you can even go for 5.0, and they added some presets here as well. So when you go here to the surround, you see Twin Shell 5.0. So they captured, similar to the core library and what Al Schmidt did with the Decades SDX, they added center, surround, left and right speakers. So you can create a 5.0 surround atmosphere, especially in that room if you want to work on cinematic style drums, for instance. This is the library and the room to go. What else? Here, again, just one pair or one cymbal slot each and just one instrument, but just the huge sizes. Nothing smaller than an 18-inch hi-hat. As a main crash, 20, 22 as a secondary crash, and 24-inch Paiste. So it's really all about big sizes here. When it comes to articulation, I mean, it was Norman Gaschke from Toontrack. He's known for his meticulously approach, together with the Toontrack guys, of course, meticulously capturing every single detail that's possible. So just look at the hi-hat here. They captured so many different articulations on the hi-hat, and in other rooms you find even that they captured and recorded the bell of the hi-hat. So articulations that the E-drummers out there cannot even reproduce on the drum module. Same for the for the right here, two different bow tip articulations. So you can really be creative and create really, let's say, human sounding MIDI performances here, because you have so much variations. The level of detail is just amazing. The snare drum, of course, as always, with a lot of different articulations, off center, edge, rim shot. So let me just go back to the live room. Some of the critiques I have though about this. The sound is absolutely amazing, and from a sound perspective, I will even put this on top of the Death in Darkness and the Decades, the two latest expansion they released last year. The only thing that I find a little bit disappointing is that they didn't go for more, let's say, instrument and cymbal options. I get the idea of the engineer Michael Ilbert from Toontrack saying that this SDX is all about the different rooms, and they handpick the drums that are tailor-made for those rooms. The amount of presets you get and everything is great, don't get me wrong, but I just think sometimes that it's a missed opportunity that when you say, I have this room, I have this engineer, I have everything into place, why do I just record two cymbals here? Why not 3 crash cymbals, a splash and a china as a default option for every single recording, you know, or maybe at least 3 toms. There are so many drummers out there and producers and engineers and songwriters that, for instance, would love to record drums or having the sound from this room or from the Meistersaal, for instance, but you just have the option to choose between 3 or 4 different cymbals. So in the end, it's not the same. I mean, it's like really, it's not the same when you add another cymbal. You have to recreate the room sound, and it's complicated with a different routing and the microphone routing option. So you all could avoid this if you just capture the drum sets like they are with just a little bit more instruments. But just having 2 crash cymbals when you put so much work and effort into an SDX is, for me, a little bit disappointing. I compare this SDX a little bit with, say, a 2020 BMW 8 Series Coupe. which is an amazing looking and probably sounding car. It's custom, it's boutique style, it's gorgeous. Is it an all-around car that you can use on daily basis? Probably not. And so maybe this SDX is something similar like that. So, what do you think, guys, about this new SDX, the Rooms of Hansa? My conclusion is that I think that this idea to capture this SDX to record in Berlin, in my hometown, which is of course great. I'm still blessed and honored that I could participate at least one day and see the recording. Thanks again, Toontrack, for inviting me to that day. The SDX itself absolutely exceeded my expectations on this. I think the approach to record drums in 4 different rooms, picking handmade drums from Germany and the US. So everything about this SDX, the choice of the engineer, the skills of the engineer Michael Ilbert, the rooms themselves, the drums they picked, everything was really just the best out of the best. It's the level of detail again is absolutely brilliant. Toontrack is still setting the standards and the bar for new levels. With every release, they put it a little bit higher, and this is no exception. When you love the Decades SDX last year or the Death and Darkness, you will love this pack as well. However, I still think that this SDX might not be the go-to library. If you just have the core library and you are considering buying a first new expansion, I would rather recommend that you go for maybe the Death and Darkness. It's more the all-around SDX and expansion, looking at the instruments you get. The Rooms of Hansa is special by any means. For me, as I said in the video, it's a missed opportunity that in some rooms they just captured 1 or 2 crash cymbals. So you have no choices in adding more cymbals in those particular rooms. Sometimes just 2 toms, not 3 or 4. So you have to consider that. It's just a personal thought that I want to share with you, that I sometimes think when they spend 2 or 3 weeks in one room, hiring such a great and a gifted and talented engineer like Michael Ilbert is, and put like all the money and the effort and the time recording those studios, that they just don't record just a common splash cymbal, for instance, or a China, which is I don't want to say that every drummer or every engineer wants to have and uses splash and China cymbals in every production. It's just about having the option. Now you have to add it from another library, which is of course doable, but it misses then the essence what an SDX like this is all about, the room sound. When you add a splash cymbal from the core library, it will be the room sounds coming from the Galaxy Studios in Belgium, where the core library had been recorded in, and not the Hansa Studios. So maybe it's complaining on a high level, that might be the case. This SDX is still absolutely brilliant and well done, and I love it. And I'm pretty sure I will use it in further productions. It's just like a little hint, or let's say an idea or wish from my side. Please, Toontrack, in further releases, just make a certain, let's say, at least minimum standard setup for cymbals, for instance, just to give the user some options to really capture the essence of every single room. Guys, leave a comment below what you think about this SDX. If you have any questions, do you consider to buy it? Just leave a comment below. I would appreciate everything as always. Thanks for Toontrack, for giving me a free copy of this pack. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing time making music, guys, and see you next time. Bye-bye.